All right, good evening. We have now been joined by our second place finisher, driver of the number 18 M&M's Carmel Toyota. And Kyle, obviously you would always prefer to be one spot better, but talk a little bit about your night and coming home second this evening.
Yeah, it was a really good effort for us, really good race for us. You know, I certainly wish that we could have kept pace with the 11 a little bit longer. We were right there with him for a long time, longer than we had all night long in that final stint. But he got through a couple lap cars a little quicker than I did, and then they got side by side, and then I got sucked into the fence, and after that it just wasn't the same. So we just had to try to bide our time and just come home, in one piece, or nobody was coming behind us. So we just had to, I think we had a 7-second gap or something behind us, so we had a long ways to give up. So we just did that, and the 11 was just the car of the day and class of the field. So, congratulations to those guys. We saw it in practice here on Friday, and I was hoping we could hang with them there a little bit more, but I think I made too many adjustments to our car and got us out of place there for the last two stints.
All right, we'll go ahead and take questions for Kyle. If you have one, please raise your hand, say your name and affiliation. We'll start with Mike.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Kyle, I guess Denny's not the first guy to miss pit road here, but can you describe how different this entrance is? Is it much harder than most?
Yeah, this one's probably especially one of the hardest, especially because the tire fall off is just so great here. I think Dover's obviously another one that's pretty sketchy to try to get down, but Darlington here is probably the worst. But I thought actually that was going to be our saving grace to win the race. Was Denny missing pit road because we were ahead of him. When he missed it, I passed him, and then we came down pit road, and we didn't have one of the best stops of the day there on the final one. The 11 must have, because they passed us back leaving pit road, and I just wasn't able to get back in front of them. I felt like if I could have had the track position over him, that possibly I could have chased down to 78 and been able to win the race. But give it to the 11. They were fast.
All right, I believe we have a question in the middle. Thank you. And then we have an additional question over there.
Hunter Thomas, thefourthturn.com. Darlington's known for long runs and real physical race. Did the stages kind of break that up for you and help you catch your breath, or was it kind of the same?
I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal Darlington. I thought actually early in the race we were going through tire sets way too fast. We were 28 laps, 30 laps, 16 laps, 8 laps. So it was early. Normally, our tire runs are 48, 55 laps, something like that. It's normally when guys are starting to pit. So I thought we were clicking tire sets off too fast, but obviously there at the end when it went green was a good thing for us. And Adam Stevens and Wheels were obviously on the same game plan there to just pit once and stretch it a little bit longer that second to last run, and then the last run obviously stretch it too. And I think a lot of people, when they pitted early, they kind of caught on to what Denny and I were doing, and we basically forced their hand that they had to stay out. They were just going to lose way too much track position if they pitted, because they would have lost a lap. I think a couple other guys, I don't remember exactly who. Maybe the 20 was actually one that did pit twice, so he finished 6th. But overall, it was just a real good heads-up call by the 11 and the 18 crew chiefs.
All right, we'll take a question over here.
Jacob Seelman, Performance Motorsports Network. Kyle, you talk about the game plan and the call by Adam Stevens. Was that something that a potential scenario that you guys had talked about before the race to try and end up on fresher tires at the end of the field, or one of those that just kind of formed for you guys as the race played out?
No, that's off the hip call. Obviously you can't plan for those things. You can't plan for how the cautions are going to fall, where they're going to fall, what tire strategies are going to be, etc. So our guys just made that call on the fly, and we stayed out a little bit longer that second to last stint. So good call by them, and being able to be heads up like that.
All right, Kyle, we appreciate your time, and we'll go ahead and let you.
All right, thanks.
Get on out of here. Thank you.
Same on both sides, bro.
All right, we've now been joined by Martin Truex Jr. And Martin, obviously, I know that you would much prefer to be here under a different circumstance as far as going to victory lane after that run tonight. But you did clinch the regular season champion, which I know can give you a little bit of breathing room going into next week in Richmond and then officially into the playoffs. But talk a little bit about your race tonight, but then also just the overall dominant performance of your team this season to be in this position, one race ahead of going into Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a bittersweet night for us. to come up just 2 laps short there, blow a tire at the end, after really having no issues with tires all night and having such a good race car. So, I don't know if that last run was the longest one we made all night. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I was kind of out there just caught up driving my guts out at the end trying to hang on. And it's unfortunate we blew the tire, but really proud of everybody on this team for an amazing season so far. And, to lock up the regular season points it's a huge accomplishment for us, for our team. I feel like we've come a long way in just a few years together and continue to climb. So proud of everybody. Wish we could have won, but that's the breaks. Sometimes they go your way, sometimes they don't. And, tonight we come up a little short, but definitely a lot to be proud of.
All right, let's go ahead and take questions for Martin. If you have one, please raise your hand and state your name and affiliation, and we're going to start up front. Right here. Can we get a microphone up here, please? Right here. Anybody? Oh, here we come. Okay, perfect.
All good. Martin, hey.
Yeah.
Brendan Marks, the Charlotte Observer. Before you blew that last tire, did you think you were going to be able to hang on till the end and outlast it?
Well, the plan was to try. I didn't know how far back they were. I didn't know how fast they were going. I didn't know how many laps fresher their tires were. They told me that they thought I could hold him off, and they gave me, the intervals and how fast he was catching me. And, with 2 to go, I seen him coming, but, catching somebody past him is a whole different deal here. And I was really holding my own pretty well, and if I could get some clean air. And every time I'd catch a lap car, they'd just drive off in the corner, slide up in front of me, and then I was just so loose on those old tires, around other cars that there wasn't much I could do to keep my pace, my momentum. So, that was really the only reason he even caught us, besides the flat tire. I mean, I don't know, we might have blew a tire either way, obviously, but you never know. But it's interesting. Cole said he wanted to wait 2 more laps to pit, and with 2 to go, we blew a tire. So it was like, it's crazy how those things work out sometimes. And, just sometimes it's just not your night, Tonight wasn't our night. So guys did a fantastic job. Obviously, we had a super strong race car, and I think we lost the lead 4 or 5 times in the pit. So guys had a little bit of an off night. And, we were able to get back to the lead, on those longer runs. So we had a great car, just didn't work out for us tonight, but a lot to be proud of, like I said. And to come here and have a shot at winning this race 2 years in a row is, it's a hell of an accomplishment. This place is so tough, and, to run 498 miles, an inch from the fence, and scrape it 4 or 5 times the right rear, and never tear my car up and be leading a race is something I'm really proud of. So it wasn't our night, but we got a lot to be proud of.
All right, we'll take a few more questions for Martin. Let's go with Mike, and then I believe we have a question over in the left. Yes.
Yep. Mike Henry, USA Today. Was it the right front tire? And
Yeah.
How hard did you hit the wall? Was it pretty
Not
bad?
hard. It was, literally at the end of the back stretch. I was running so high getting in the corner anyway that I only had 6 inches to go to hit it. So I literally stepped on the brake. The car turned right. I went, I was a foot from the wall when the tire popped, and I just kind of glanced off it and glanced around the track. So it really wasn't bad at all, and I was actually able to make 2 laps with the thing on the inner liner and finish 8th. So not bad, just disappointing more than anything.
All right, Jacob, go ahead.
Jacob Seelman, Performance Motorsports Network. Martin, I could tell just when you walked in here, and even on TV, you were leaning against the car. Everybody looks wore out. This racetrack has a penchant for being a physical race, but tonight seemed like it was tougher than the last couple of years. Why was that? What did you feel throughout the course of the race?
It was definitely tougher for a lot of reasons. I think that these cars are a lot harder to drive than they were last year. Track's a year older, tires are wearing out faster, the cars have less downforce, cars have more horsepower. The competition's closer. It was really hot today, and for some reason these cars, it just seems like they just keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter inside. And all those things combined, and the mental focus it takes to run here. I was talking about 498 miles against the fence in 3 and 4, scraping it. If you screw up 2 inches, you're done. You could ruin your night. So it's all those things on top of each other. It's just the mental focus, and the physical part of it for me, I think, at the end was just I ran out of I ran out of. I keep Gatorade in my drink bag in my car, and I ran out with like 100 to go, and we had no caution. We had a couple green flag stops, and typically there's no time to grab a drink from the crew. So I just kind of got dehydrated, I guess, a little bit at the end there, last 100, and it was just hot, man. Pouring your guts out. I gave it everything I had the last 100 laps, and come up 2 laps short. So. I was surprised. Typically here you'll have a guy scrape the wall, hit the wall, tear off some debris. Some guys were riding around tore up with bare bond and stuff flapping. You think something would fall off at some point in time, but yeah, you just never know how these things are going to play out. Had we had a late caution, we might have been in really good shape, but we might also got beat on a restart. You never know. So it just didn't work out tonight. Like I said, 2 laps, man, 2 laps.
All right, we're going to take 2 final questions for Martin. We're going to go to Bob, and then we'll wrap with Kelly. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Hockress, ESPN. Everybody had talked about, there should be something more for the regular season champ. Now that there is, do you feel like you've accomplished something bigger because of the playoff points involved?
Well, I think it's a huge accomplishment. I don't really understand exactly what you're asking me. I don't know if it means more to the team, or it's not harder to do because of that. I think I think in the past it's meant a lot. We've seen the guys that have won it. It's a lot to be proud of. It's so difficult to do in this sport, in this series. It's so competitive. So I would say it's not harder to do, but there's a lot more, there's a lot more benefit to doing it. I'm glad we picked the right time to do it. I think it's, I think we're, the regular season winner is deserving of those extra points because it's so difficult to do. And, I think it was a good decision to make that change. And, they did it because of the difficult level and the guys that had performed at a really high level throughout the regular season and then, had a bad race or two in the playoffs and lost their shot at winning a championship. So it would suck to win the regular season championship and just completely lose your shot at winning a title based on some kind of racing luck. Racing's it's just the way it goes. Sometimes you have a couple bad weeks, and this rewards the guys that performed at a high level all season long that I think deserve to be around late in the playoffs.
All right, we're going to go to Kelly, and then we'll take 1 question from the press box. Go ahead, Kelly.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. Martin, a bittersweet night, but the fact that you wrapped up the regular season championship with a week to spare, is there any kind of extra satisfaction in that, or maybe kind of unbelievable that you were able to accomplish that?
Well, it's definitely special. It feels great. Definitely can go to Richmond without any pressure, which is awesome. The other cool part is I clinched my first NASCAR championship here back in '04 in the Busch series back then. So to do it here again tonight was really cool. It's just kind of a neat connection. Darlington's been good to me. I love coming here, and for that reason, I guess it's a little bit extra special to do it here tonight.
All right. Additional question in the press box?
Yeah, one more real quick, Martin.
Sure.
GregAngleAutoWeek.com. Thanks for coming out.
No problem.
Sorry. Question is, at one point Kyle Larson was trying to stay on the lead lap. Did you get into him? You guys look like you're pretty close. Did you get into him? Was there some?
Yeah, I've got a big run on him off of 2, and I was hoping he'd give me the outside, and he slowed down to give me the inside down the backstretch, and I bumped him a little bit in the tail, and then turned inside him and went on. So a little miscommunication on our parts, but yeah, he was giving me a lane to go in, and I was hoping he'd give me the opposite one he did. So we happened to bump a little bit, but yeah, it was all good. We raced a lot together, especially early in the race. Raced hard with Kyle a lot, and in general a lot this year. And man, he's so much fun to race with. He's so talented. So glad that I definitely appreciated him giving me the room there at the end when I was trying to get through lap cars. But enjoyed racing with him for sure. He's awesome.
All right, Martin. We appreciate you.
Thanks,
spending
guys.
some time
Appreciate
with
it.
us. We know it was hot out there tonight, and congratulations again on clinching that regular season championship. All right, with our interviews post-race of the Southern 500, and we've now been joined by our race team owner, Joe Gibbs, and our race-winning crew chief, Mike Wheeler, also better known to the NASCAR Garage as Wheels. So we'll just start tonight just talking a little bit about that race. Obviously an incredible battle there at the end. Denny taking the win. As he mentioned, was able to win here yesterday in the Xfinity race, which I know probably gave him a lot of momentum going into today. But, Coach, we'll start with you. Just talk a little bit about what it means to bring home another Southern 500 win, but then also just kind of how this sets you guys up for a great spot heading into the playoffs in just a few weeks.
Yeah, I think coming to Darlington, you can see it in everybody that races here. It's one of those places that has history. It's one of the hardest places we race to get a win. The crowd tonight I thought was great, and so it's a thrill for us coming here. I think Denny is, I think he's a great sports story. When JD first met him and put him in that very first test, part of the second race we put him in, JD said, let's put him at Darlington in an Xfinity car. And Denny had never seen the place, and he came over here and finished ninth. And JD said, I think we need to sign this guy. And I said, I think you're right. And kind of the rest is history. But I think it's a great story. Denny, I think you can tell when he goes to certain racetracks, too, he's got some favorites in there that he's awful good at, and I think this is one of them.
And Wills, for you, just talk a little bit about, from your vantage point on the pit box, kind of how the race played out and ultimately, that last run there for Denny. He was catching Martin even before Martin essentially, hit the wall there at the end. But talk a little bit about, what that was like from your seat, and also just as we get closer to the playoffs, how this team is gaining momentum and really prepping for those final 10 races.
The race played out very fortunate for us. We didn't really struggle too much. We ran top 5 all night. The guys did a really good job on pit road. We were doing well. I'm proud of the fact that we had good speed and Denny was able to run up front. I was getting a little nervous at the 78. Looked a little faster. So we wanted to just kind of keep battling and try to get him at the end. Then it came down to strategy. Tried to make sure we made not the wrong call. So we were doing our numbers, and I seen everybody else pitting, and ultimately just made sure try to give our driver the best chance to win, even though it might not work in our favor. I didn't think once he missed pit road we had a great chance anymore. I knew we gave up 10 seconds on the leaders, and ultimately, much as I was trying to coach him to get mad and get even with everyone else, I knew it was hard to make up 10 seconds over one stint. But I'm proud of the fact that the car was that fast. Denny's obviously a wheelman here. If you don't win here with Denny, you probably didn't have a good enough car. So seeing him come from 10 seconds back in one stint, I was really happy with that effort, and I knew we probably had the fastest car.
All right, we'll go ahead and take questions for Coach or Wheels. If you have one, please raise your name, state your name and affiliation. We'll start up front with Kenny and then go back to Mike.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Yeah, for Wheels, you touched on the pit road miscue there briefly. What exactly did you tell him?
I don't even remember. I was mad. It's one of those things I try to stay focused on what's going on, what's forward and not what just happened. I saw we ran a 41-second lap, and I knew that's hard to overcome when we're trying to do math on 1 and 2 seconds of sequences and pit stop gains. But I noticed when we came out that the 41 and 78 were battling each other pretty hard and losing a half second a lap doing that. So I knew that as long as they were battling that hard and hurting their tires, they were going to be in trouble to make it the whole distance without, falling off really hard. We got within 10 seconds, and I'm like, okay, we should be leading right now. But we still had about 35 to go, and I'm like, we got a long time to go. With about 20 to go, we were within like 5 seconds. We were starting to break even with the leaders. But once we got within 15, I realized, as much as Denny was pushing it, Truex was falling off even harder than he ever had all night. Seeing that, it was like just try to keep feeding Denny information and get him to get up on it. And, went from a tenth or two a lap to 4/10 a lap. And I knew the math would work out that we could win by 2 seconds. I thought we gave it up with some lap car got in the way, and Denny gave him a big punt. I was hoping they'd let us race it out. But fortunately, Truex had to push harder than he probably needed to and hurt his tires and ended up in the fence, and we drove by.
All right. We've now been joined by our race winner, driver of the number 11 SportClips Toyota, Denny Hamlin. And Denny, you were extremely excited after the race in your interviews on with NBC, but then also having the opportunity to run the throwback paint scheme, which you've also throughout the weekend kind of had the opportunity to tell how special that was for you. But just talk a little bit about the win tonight, what it does for you heading into the playoffs in a couple weeks, but also just the opportunity to win in that special paint scheme this evening.
It was all really cool.
Anything else?
Oh, yeah. No, it was, all of it was awesome. I mean, to win in the Flying 11 and to win the Xfinity race, win the Cup race, both in very exciting fashion, was a great feeling. And then, to fight through the adversity of, missing the pit road and coming back. And we had great strategy, fast car, and it just worked out in the end. I was hoping it would. Otherwise, I would have looked pretty silly after the race trying to explain why we lost. But it just I think a lot of that came from Truex beating us on a green flag sequence earlier in the day, and so I pushed it a little bit more on pit entry, and I didn't want it to happen again, and I just pushed it a little bit too much. Kind of a rookie move, but also just trying to optimize everything. And it was just we got our car better as soon as it turned into tonight. We kept getting the car better, kept making adjustments, and kept working on it. And we had something we could win with. And it's proud to win them in that fashion, especially as a total team effort. Pit crew did a great job all night getting us out in front 2 or 3 times. We had a great strategy. The car was great, and driver did okay at the end too.
All right. I thought you had a few more comments about that race win. So we'll go ahead and continue with our questions. If you have one for Coach, Denny, or Wheels, continue to raise your hand, and I'll get as many as I can. You can get a microphone to Mike. Go ahead.
Mike Neff from frontstretch.com. This is for Wheels. Obviously, strategy in these things is very fluid. At what point did it come clear to you that you needed to go for that double long stretch there at the end in order to have a shot at the win?
Yeah, that's a good word to put it. Definitely fluid. It's difficult because you can't go on last year's notes and lap times to see where you should be. Truthfully, I noticed earlier in the race, I believe it was the end of segment 2, where Denny and Truex were definitely the best long-run cars. It was about 56 laps they were going on tires, and a couple guys were dropping the anchor. And Denny and Truex were running them down. And it was apparent that our tire wear was great. It looked better than the field. You heard comments about guys having cords and all that kind of stuff, and Denny managed his stuff well, and we worked the setup around it too. But Denny manages his stuff very well. I won't say anything else. So the last stint when we were running, top 2 I think we were leading. I knew the moment the 78 short pitted us, we could not come back around and be ahead of them. That caught us off guard earlier. We were going to pit in like 2 or 3 laps. I followed suit early in the race, and we came up behind him because you lose 3 or 4 seconds of lap time here. So I knew our best option was not bite on the other guy's short pitting the thing, because they short pitted the stint by 10 or 15 laps. Some guys are doing 2 stops, and we were going to do 1 stop. But it was painful to do, and I'm glad it worked out in our favor. But I made sure we just, stay diligent on our numbers and make sure Denny was in clean air. He was able to run good lap times on long tires, or on long run. But I knew that mathematically it should work out if the cautions don't fall or fall in our favor. I thought we were in trouble when we lost 10 seconds there. But ultimately I knew the other guys were going to have to save their tires to make the last 10 laps, and it worked out in our favor.
All right. Get a mic to Bob, please.
Bob Hockris, ESPN. Denny, you have the most wins of any active driver who hasn't won a title. So I'm curious, what might be different this year that would allow you to win the title, and is it something that gnaws at you?
This year is really no different. I mean, we've been at this point before where we've, had wins going into the playoffs. Luck has kept us from championships in the past, and mistakes have kept us from championships in the past. Not many times has it been performance. So I think you just got to put all those two things together and prepare for anything that can get thrown to you. And I know Coach is all about having a game plan, and that's something I've really worked hard on this year is studying notes and coming up with a game plan when I get to the racetrack of how I'm going to approach things. And I think that it's paying off, and hopefully it pays off, 11, 12 races from now.
All right. A mic to Nate, please.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Actually, I have one for Wheels, one for Denny. Wheels, I know you said you can't really go off of like last year's notes and everything like that. I'm on your left, sorry. But this was the first time since 2006 a 500-mile race here had ended with more than 100 laps of consecutive green. I mean, did you think there'd be a yellow? And if there was, how did you think that would affect things?
I think a lot of races go green now. With the stages falling out the way they do and NASCAR letting things race out. It's great to see, because it makes its own storylines. So as much as I thought someone might hit the fence, spin out, blow a tire, I knew we shouldn't try to call a race on that. Ultimately, you try to make sure that you position yourself to go the distance the best you can. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, but I wasn't going to take it away from us. I knew we had a good enough car and obviously a great enough driver. But I wanted to make sure we gave him a full opportunity to make the best long-run car and driver and get there at the end. So, you just can't use last year's data before the race. Someone said it's very fluid. It is. And we were calculating data live on the pit box. And I got two young engineers that we've been together for 3 races now. So I'm really proud of that effort because they weren't wrong. We were right. With that big hiccup, it would have not shown up. But to come that far back as quickly as we did, it was pretty impressive.
Can I get you to follow on that, Denny? Do you feel like NASCAR is more inclined to let races play out naturally?
Yeah, as they should. And I mean, look what happened. I mean, you had a car run down the leader from a long way back and pass them essentially with coming to 2 to go. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it puts the strategy back in the crew chiefs, the driver's hands. It's back. We are a throwback weekend. This is a throwback to saving tires and, a long, grueling race. And I like it ending on a sequence like that.
And then one more for you. Martin Truex Jr. clinched the regular season title, so he's going to start the playoffs with at least 52 points every round. What kind of advantage do you think that's going to give him to get to Miami?
It's a big advantage, but it's well earned. I mean, anytime anyone can dominate the regular season essentially like he has, he deserves to have a mulligan in each round. So I applaud them and hope we keep it the same going forward. I hope that if we perform that well next year and have that big of a lead, it's well earned and the competitors respect that. And I think that everyone in the garage will say that it's well earned and deserved.
All right, we're going to go to the press box. Any questions in the press box?
Denny, this is Thomas Buck from the Fayetteville Observer. You've got 7 wins here now between Cup and Xfinity. How does a driver ever get comfortable in a track where you wouldn't think you could ever get enough to win the way that you have?
It's something about the racetrack that kind of suits my driving style. I mean, from the very first time I came here at a test, Tony Stewart was here and kind of really helped me kind of find my way around this racetrack. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but it just suits the way I drive. To be able to run a little bit an orthodox line, I think helps me at this racetrack. And I think, really just every time I come back, I learn a little bit more from what I did in the past. And it just, you refine the way you do things and you get a little bit better, and it's led to success.
Any additional questions in the press box? All right, we'll come back downstairs to Jacob, please. If we can get a mic, please.
Jacob Seelman, Performance Motorsports Network. One for Wheels and then one for you, Denny. Wheels, Truex was in, or actually I think it was Kyle Busch who was in here earlier and talking about how you and Stevens basically had the strategy nailed with being able to call the later pit stop the way you did. But knowing how much the tire wear has grown here, especially the last couple of years. Is that ever something that you go into a race thinking that at the end of it, you can, you're trying to plan to be on the freshest tires?
Yeah, you come into the race realizing you need to do the analysis during the race. Fortunately, the cup races are long enough where you can get some actual data for the first half of the race and realize what you're trying to do between tire wear and lap times and all that kind of stuff. The Xfinity race, you're kind of guessing more. But having been in a race yesterday, I went down to Eric Phillips and those guys and kind of see what they were doing. Be on the same tire, a little different car, but you can kind of grasp that. Adam and I, we hung out together. We grew up together in racing here, so we've been around each other for a long time, and I think we kind of see the same type of things, and what we want to do with lap times. Ultimately, we kind of lost Pocono by not doing this. The 18 did the opposite, and it was apparent afterwards that we needed to make sure we do the right thing for us, not just react to the field. And it was painful. I'm not going to lie. I was sitting there when everybody else was pitting lap 300 to 310. I was like, man, I hope this works out for us. It should. But then he ran some good lap times on old tires, and it was the difference.
And Wheels talks about it, Denny. You running the best lap times of your race in that last stint, coming immediately after missing pit road there right before you and Kyle came down. I know anytime you make a mistake in a race car, it's going to push you to race that little bit extra harder. But how big of a motivator sitting there, realizing that Kyle's just got around you and that could be the race? How big of a motivator was that on that last stint?
It was a big motivator, but I think they did a good job of reminding me to set up my passes and not just, there's different ways to get around this racetrack, and running faster is not always the fastest way. So it's really weird, but you got to just know when to pass, know when to let off, and position yourself for a pass. And I think I optimized, the traffic that I was in when I had fresher tires. It's a rhythm track. Yeah, it's a big rhythm track, so you don't want to catch people at a bad time. It's very similar to road course racing in that sense, that you don't want to catch people in the wrong corners or else it costs a lot of lap time.
All right, additional questions? Additional questions in the press box. All right, congratulations, guys.